Yes, thanks for some excellent presentations. One thing that I really thought about when I was looking at the presentation from Daiquiri is where you guys see the breakdown between what should be resident firmware on the device itself, that obviously you've got some cool out of the box functionality there, versus what should be a part of like an EAM solution or some other piece of software that's running in the enterprise. How does that break down, and what who's responsible for what from a hardware and software standpoint?
Test. From a standpoint of the who's responsible from the hardware and the software, right now, all of the strategic partners that we are working with, we work hand in hand to make sure that we're integrating our software and the hardware into as seamlessly as possible into the specific examples for whatever company we're working with. The software is a very easy drag and drop type of platform that allows you to create the different content and work seamlessly with your whatever systems you're using. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but can you?
Are you looking for an API that comes from an enterprise software vendor and then exposing that data, or it just seems like in some AR applications you're getting the hardware as kind of raw gear, and you need someone to essentially expose that data on the device pretty much from scratch, where it seems like you're coming a little bit closer to the front door of the house.
Correct. I mean, we have specific out-of-the-box applications in terms of like the data visualization and things like that. It can all be implemented using our platform, our Creation Studio, 4D Studio, that comes with the helmet. So, like I said, it's a very easy platform to create with. You don't need a lot of prior knowledge or a high skill set to create these types of things, so then the workers can visualize that information that you already have. So it's just a matter of using the tool to then implement onto the helmet.
Can other panelists discuss what their experience with that balance between the enterprise software and the hardware device would be?
Yeah,
and then I'll yield to the guy on my right here.
Yeah, if I would add to that, the IoT and augmented world, both from the software and the hardware side, are changing very fast. They're actually changing every week, changing every month. On our side, we're a software company, so obviously we're focused on the software side. We're focused on making sure that you can bring any enterprise data into the experiences that you've seen. And we're working with a lot of different hardware vendors, but I would say it's a ever-changing landscape out there. We're working today with HoloLens, we're working with wearables, we're working with tablets. That changes every week, every month. Again, my advice would be look at the hardware and software vendors that seem to be a good fit for the use cases you have in mind. Most of the vendors have a offering that allows you to get started quick, start with your own initial use case, and it's when you have your hands on the software, on the hardware, and start to work with operators that you will actually clarify which use case would be the relevant one that you should start with, given your own environment and your own reality. Different companies have different drivers. Some it's around safety, it's around productivity, it's around complexity. The best way to understand what those tools can do is to get started with them.
So I think we had somebody right next to you, and then you next. Jesus? Oh.
We have someone back there first?
Yes, Jesus. Oh, okay.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. Excellent presentations. My name is Jesus Flores from Praxair. We are just starting to look into this technology and into this journey. Obviously, I think it's a great technology, and I don't have any doubt that there is a lot of applications for this. The question I have that I want to ask to the panel is for running a pilot, running a few applications, in my mind, I don't see an issue. I think the thing I want to ask is, your thoughts regarding when, for instance, when you go and have the augmented reality in a piece of equipment. Let me give you an example. We have thousands of compressors, different types of machinery, different providers, different size. What is the effort required, the human effort required to develop the application so that you come up with the procedures, the application to for the people to really follow up on this, right? And not only in the machine side, but also in the failure type of mode, right? Different reparations, so you have an exponential problem. How you can address that, what type of resources you will need to further develop this technology in the minds of a user, right? Eventually, we may want to adopt this.
So I'll take a stab at that first. I think that's a really good question. And I think to start, for a lot of companies, augmented reality will start as a very specific point solution. So I mentioned the fact that one of the inhibitors is the complex ecosystem that comes with an augmented reality application. So I think companies will find specific solutions where augmented reality can really do a lot without having to, as you said, pull in detail and information about, say, 1,000 different types of compressors or hundreds of different failure modes. And then once that's established, you have kind of a base to start moving AR throughout your enterprise. So I like to think about kind of the inertia of the technology. I think augmented reality has, at least right now, a high level of inertia. So it's going to be, it might, for some companies, be difficult to get started. But once you have that base with that point solution, it'll make sense to start moving that throughout your company to more complex solutions.
And if I would add here, one thing that is fundamentally changing also as an enterprise system is that idea of a rip and replace that we used to have for many years. With IoT and augmented reality, it's about allowing you to get more from your existing systems and get more from your existing environment. So it's all about brownfield environment. At PTC ThingWorx, what we see with customers, and we're working with a lot of customers that are in a similar situation where you walk in a factory and there's all sorts of equipment from all sorts of different vendors. So typically, if you have your equipment connected to PLCs already in a day, you have access to all the data directly in the platform. Each and every tags that you have in your systems connected to PLC, you have access to them. A couple of days more, you have access to enterprise systems. Today, the technology is at a state where you have access to APIs to connect to EAM, ERP pretty easily. So what we see with our customers is in a couple of days, they have their data in the system, and in 6 weeks, they're up and running with initial application that can be either be augmented reality or IoT applications directly on a tablet. Not to say that it covers everything in all use cases, but what we see again from our customers is more an agile approach where we walk with them in their factory. Let's identify those mission critical machines. Let's identify those areas where we know there's a problem of having a lot of data in different systems and different assets. Let's mash it up. Let's create a single view for operators or maintenance or quality in augmented reality or not, and then go from there with the operators. And what our customers see is that a 6-week time frame actually can be applied also across factories. So they will typically start with a use case, get it up and running, get some early success that allows them to justify, do more, and then they take that same app and then roll it out to more factories in parallel to creating additional use cases. So couple days to couple weeks is I would say my simple answer to a question, how long would it take to connect to an environment such as yours?
And just one quick, as Olivia, as you're about to step in and answer here. So what's the intensity of the process and resource requirements of, say, that 6-week period? Olivia, if you maybe could address that as your...
Yeah, I can. I would just kind of add to the other comments, which is, we're if you think about the process industries and a refinery, a lot of times they isolate a unit. Like you might set something up for a crude unit and use that as not really a pilot, but it's set up in isolation. We see this a lot, especially on the mining side, where you've got multiple sites. and they wanted to roll out operator training in the sense of augmented or virtual reality, but they need to prove it first. And it's really probably more about proving it to leadership, because the idea is good, but there is an effort, right? And so, especially when you look at something like iSIM, you can pull it off the shelf, and it does have preset equipment and preset safety scenarios and operating procedures, and that's fine. But there is going to be customization. So I think there's a magnitude of scale depending on what investment you're willing to make. I didn't go through a lot of use cases because what I had were more around operator training. But what we find is, I'll use the mining example. They'll prove it on one set of units or one part of the plant, prove the return on investment, and then they'll continue on that site and then roll it out to other sites. So there's always been a good return on investment with the effort that you put in. And I'm sorry, what was this follow-up question?
I was just wondering about, so if you were taking a 6-week period, for example, what is in terms of the end user, what's the process and resource intensity within that 6 weeks?
Well,
So
in
how
ter-
immersive are they required to be in terms of getting that rolled out?
Okay, I'll say it just in terms of iSIM. So iSIM is specifically structured and rolled out to a certain site. So I talked a little bit about the fact that we want to capture best practices, right? The only way you can do that is to be intimately involved with those operators with the experience. So it's going to be a services project, an intense services project, where you have multiple experts in the room deciding on what goes into that project. So it's not something like going to Best Buy and pulling something off the shelf and saying, okay, we'll just go use it. If you think about the complexity of a refinery, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of variables. Those 100,000 variables will not be in the augmented reality, but there's some decision-making that has to be made there on the scope of what you want to do and how you want to deploy it and who's involved. You also have to think about functions and roles, right? Everybody's got a different role in a refinery, so certain people have to see certain information. And that's, you've got maintenance, you've got operators, you've got engineers that might be using the same model to do design. So it depends really on the scope and complexity before you even get started.
Thanks.
I think Mike asked a big part of my question just now to try to get a feel for how, yeah, I saw some
Exactly,
beautiful
yeah.
content there in those demos that you guys have done, but how much work is that? In terms of man hours, to do a scene maybe? I'm trying to hang it back on something that I'm familiar with, like how much, I know about how much work it is to develop a normal operator screen for a SCADA system or a DCS or an HMI product. Is that going to be comparable to developing a scene and then hanging it someplace in physical 3D space? Is that going to be comparable to that? And the second part of the question is, who is doing that? For the implementations that you've done, is it you guys? Is it your application specialists? Is it the end user customer? Or is it now, or is it going to be maybe a network of system integrators out there who are really good and certified at using your studio, your development kits? So how much work is it, and who's going to do that work?
Good granular example. Thank you.
In terms of how much work is it, going back to 4D Studio, which is the authoring platform to create the content for our products, you can create experiences very quickly. Like, I'm probably within minutes to an hour, depending on how tech savvy the person doing it is. But it's literally drag and drop the models, drag and drop different aspects into the field of view, and then publishing it. But it has a wide range of capabilities, to where if you have somebody who is, more tech savvy in terms of they have prior experience with C++, or they have Unity experience and things like that, they can then create things in those programs and bring them into our studio to publish them. So in terms of creating the content and displaying it, you can do that very quickly. In terms of the stuff that we showed, these are examples that we have created in-house, but then also have worked with customers who are looking for our help to create them initially as well.
In our case, I'd say it always requires a couple people, IT, OT. The way those platforms are set up, also, you typically leverage your IT folks for the integration layer, building REST APIs to connect to your ERPs, MES, EAM, et cetera. It can be either your own IT people, or we have system integrators today that went through numerous implementation. We have hundreds of plants live, so we're using MES people who knows the manufacturing environment, and they're all certified and trained on the platform, so they can help you out. When it comes to building the app itself, then you no longer need IT folks. It's more subject matter experts. So it's all about drag and drop, like Drew from Daiquiri was saying. Those platforms are all similar. As soon as you have access to the data, machine data, through Kepware, system data, through REST APIs, then building the environment, the experience itself can be done by subject matter experts. And what we typically see in our case is there's a concept of a marketplace in our platform, so call it an app store if you want. So our partners are building application that you can pull into your own environment, or you can make the app store a private app store from within your company, and that's what we see a lot of our customers doing. So they're gonna leverage their OT, IT, and subject matter experts to build role-specific applications. They're gonna make it available as part of their private company app store, and then they let it to the different teams and different factories to decide whether they're gonna adopt that specific application for their own environment. So it's a way also to make sure that any role-based application that is created by any of your team working on projects can be securely and in a controlled manner be made available to other factories from within your company. Yes?
Should we get your question up front?
Follows on that. So how much are you seeing OEMs start to get involved in publishing their own training material in AR-ready format to be brought into the system?
So just to make sure everybody heard the question, we're talking about what are you seeing in terms of OEM making publishable training materials AR ready?
So there are OEMs today that, so they are, augmented reality and IoT is being leveraged by two groups of customers, operators that bought equipment from somebody else, where the problem is I have 20 equipment from 20 different vendors, and by OEMs who embed IoT and make augmented reality a differentiated offering on their product. I'd say that there is today faster adoption on the operator side because the data already exists and you don't need to wait for the next generation product. You can get started now. But OEMs are investing. And today when you buy an asset, when you buy an industrial asset, now it's being standard expectation that you're going to get complete manuals, that you're going to get electronic manuals, and that you're going to get a lot of the 3D enterprise data for that product. It's just becoming standard expectation when you buy an asset. So what we believe is that over time in the next couple of years, as augmented reality become more and more adopted on the operator side, it's going to become an expectation for the asset vendors to make the data available in such a way that it's at least compatible or 80% there in terms of making it available for AR platform. But operators are adopting first.
So I think we have a question in the back.
Yeah, and it's not so much of a question. Neva Stanfeld from Microsoft, and I've worked with Livia and some of the other folks up here. And it really is, as they mentioned, it is that ecosystem. It's a platform, and you want to leverage the systems you already have. So you have your P&ID drawings of equipment that are identifying this is a compressor. Here are the relevant tags for compressor 101, the pressure, the temperature. Then you go to your historian and you have tag PT 102 has this value in the historian. And so you're just linking all these things together. So you're putting together a template that says, okay, if I want to create some experience for a compressor, yes, I go and I visualize the compressor. You have the visual recognition software that sees it, frames it into that physical space. You overlay that P&ID drawing with the tags, and that links to the historian with those tags to stream the data. So all of that is using the systems that you already have and the metadata that is available with all those systems. So you're not creating new things and new integration from scratch. So you are really leveraging what you have, and as the OEMs, and if you have procedures from them. And so you have, here's a visual of the compressor, and I want to have this list of tasks to do. And if I want to see a procedure for a shutdown, I go to that document with that shutdown. So again, it's just linking in to all of the things that you already have and creating that framework to have that experience using the new technology.
So I think I'd like to close with one last question, and something Will and I have discussed at length over these last few months, and want to put you on the spot just a little bit. So a lot of the feedback we receive, whether it's perception or reality, I don't think it matters. Perception is reality in this particular area at the moment. AR is still in many instances perceived as a point solution. And it's a very strategic concept. So what do you think is the tipping point in terms of moving AR from a point orientation to more of a strategic value, enterprise tool that has many, many point uses and implications? So I guess we could start here and just work down the line.
That's a really good question. Is it a point solution or well, it's both a point solution and strategic. What we see in our case is customers, operators, OEM, machine builders are very interested in augmented reality. So there's definitely a perception out there that there is a strategic component to augmented reality. The way that all the vendors are attacking augmented reality is in such a way that it makes it a way to visualize enterprise data. So from that perspective, then it's going to become an enterprise device. And we're probably at the early stages here, although technology is accelerating. But just like 5-10 years ago, we could not imagine having operators in a factory having their phone and tablets. Today, operators just expect that they're going to be able to do it. So we can see very rapidly in a couple of years that operators and people in factories will just expect that enterprise data and machine data can be seen not only through their smartphones and their tablets, but through all sorts of augmented reality devices. And at this point, then, when it's going to become standard expectation, then it's going to just be part of the enterprise systems that are in place.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, so that's a great question.
Which we've discussed.
Yeah, which we've discussed. So augmented reality will certainly start in many cases as a point solution. And that's because we're really building a world. We're building an augmented world that we can overlay in certain situations onto our real world. So you can't build that world in one shot. You have to develop it. And you're also building the interactions. And so that's a lot of complexity there. And so I've mentioned this before, but I think as companies invest in these point solutions and they start developing their AR ecosystem, that kind of opens up the door for maybe other groups within the company or other operators or other facilities to see that and to say, okay, we already have this set up, we understand how it works, let's start moving this around our company to see how it can help us with other activities.
Olivia?
So not to repeat the others, but, and it addresses something that Neva said as well. So when we find, because we're in the process industries, we've always had access to a lot of data, and we use that data to control and optimize our plants. So the data exists, the simulations exist, the machines are, pseudo-connected in the sense that we have all this data that we can bring in. But I think to the same point that my colleagues are saying, is that it's going to happen whether you want it or not. It just depends on when you want to do it, because we've got a sheer amount of data. And back to my point of, not just what do we do with the data, but how are we going to train the next generation of workers? I mean, there is an expectation that this technology is in place. They're used to using the technology, and so the expectation's already set. So if you're on the lagging side of things, it's going to be more difficult to attract and retain talent, which I think was Will's point, and really manage your operations or optimize your operations using that data. So I think the two things for us, for the process industries, is just the sheer amount of data, and then just the lack of skilled workers, where we're going to be replacing more jobs with fewer people, and the expectation is that you'll take on more responsibilities and functions, and so that's going to be facilitated by tools like augmented reality.
Thanks. Drew?
I agree. It's not an if or even a when. The generation, they're very much a now generation. They want information immediately. They want things immediately. And and that's what this technology gives you the ability to do. It gives you the information exactly when you need it in real time, which I think is very valuable. And I think it'll be more widely adopted when it's not just a one-trick pony. It's not just doing one thing. And I think that's what makes our product so powerful, is that it can do so many different things. It's not just one thing that it can do. I'm not only giving you data visualization, but you have the ability to, with the thermal camera, you have remote expert. You have all of these different things that you can do with it instead of having it just be a one-trick pony. I also think the ability to easily create the content that's specific for whatever business use case that you're looking for is extremely important, because a lot of companies don't have these very highly skilled 3D modelers and animators and programmers that can do all of these things. So having a program where you can easily create the content that you need and implement it into the hardware in a very seamless and quick process, I think is important. And we're really about, intelligence augmentation. So giving people the ability to really empower and better themselves so that they can learn new skills very quickly. We've talked a lot about training, and augmented reality is obviously a no-brainer for enhancing the way that we get information, the way that we retain that information and learn complex concepts in a very efficient manner. So I think it's not an if or even a when. People are doing it now. So I think you just have to figure out which use cases works for you.
Great.
And just
We're
want to add one more
running
thing.
late, so.
If you want ideas where to get started and which point solutions could be a good point to start, just walk the plant, ask your people all the hidden systems that they have in place. You all know that there are all sorts of Excel spreadsheets and databases and PowerPoints and Word documents and images that are annotated. Ask your people, what did they created? What are all the hidden systems? And you'll probably find a couple of gold nuggets that when you find those systems, talk to the people and just tell them, what if instead of what you created, you would have it this way? How would you like to have the information? And you're going to find a lot of very interesting use cases that are important to your people, that have a good story, that have a real problem behind it, and that you can enable very quickly just to get started.
Great, thanks. So thank you, everybody, for attending. Really appreciate it. Once again, thanks to our sponsors. Thanks to our speakers.